No, I'm just kidding. I'm trying. I'm trying to set the mood. All right, forget it. Forget it. The Traitors, U.S. version. All right, episode 2 reaction. I just checked it out. This episode is brought to you by the Hood Podcast. All right, and vidmondo.com. So, I hope that everyone has checked out this season. If not, that is kind of why I'm doing this because you do have to pay past episode 1. And if you don't want to pay that subscription, then then obviously this is a really good way to keep up with what's going on the show, even though everything's pretty much over. Unlike normal TV shows like this, you have to wait a whole week. Well, in this case, because it's on a subscription service, you can watch the entire season in one day. So there you have it. I just concluded my episode 1. Go check it out. And now I want to talk about what I saw in episode 2. The standout situations that happened was everyone was able to react to Reza. I want to say his name is Reza. Is it? Is it not? I have a photograph of him, and it is right after so long. All these faces just blend in. And did I delete his face when he got deleted? Oh, here he is right here. Reza. This is the guy who goes home on episode 1. And it's no surprise to me because he was so loud. And this game is very simple. And I'm not sure why this hasn't been said. And there has to be somebody on this game that's intelligent enough to realize this. But the best way to win this game or go far in this game is to say the least. The person who says the least is going to win this game because no one will be thinking about you. For example, this player right here. I'm going to show you a picture of this person. All right, I see her very sparingly in this particular game. I'll show you another player who I rarely see, doesn't get much camera time. This person here. All right, this person here gets little to no camera time. Okay, and I got to show you this guy because if I didn't have his picture on my phone, I wouldn't even think he was in the game. Where is he at? He's so like incognito. I could barely find his photograph. All right, so these are the kind of players that are going to go really far in this game because they're not standing out. Reza, on the other hand, he was the loudest player in the competitions. He was the loudest player in every room he was in. So those things, in my opinion, contributed to him going home first. That's why he went home first. All right. But after he goes home, everyone's conversating and they start putting two and two together. And they realize that a player named Michael had somewhat of an argument with Reza. And immediately, Michael becomes a huge target for everybody. He becomes a big focal point in this episode. This guy right here. So Michael is not quite keen on the fact that everyone's saying his name. And one of the main players saying his name is Geraldine. Okay. Geraldine is saying, hey, I heard Mike and Reza having an argument. And I heard Michael say that Reza was so annoying. So that is what contributed to Reza going home. So she's trying to paint this target on Michael, saying Michael must be one of the traitors because his annoyance has gone home. So it makes sense logically. But what Geraldine made a mistake in doing is just talking. In this type of game, the less you talk, the farther you're going to go in the game. That's just it's really simple. And by her offering up Michael's name, she automatically put her own name in the system. And that's how it works. So they go to the competition. It's a buried alive competition. A competition I wouldn't want to partake in. If I had to partake in it, I certainly would not be one of the people that's going inside this coffin. But anyway, I believe it was 6 players. They went inside of a coffin, and their teammates had to find them. It's like a scavenger hunt almost, using a map and clues, and try to get to that grave site and dig them out before time elapsed. And it was a 40-minute time limit. Um, as you know, or you may not know, of the 6 coffins, or rather grave sites, 4 of the grave sites were dug up in time, unless I'm mistaken. Okay, I was watching, I was paying attention. Wasn't sure if it was 6 grave sites or 4. I don't know. Forget. But I will say that there were 2 that were not dug up. I can say that for a fact. Something's telling me it was 4, but I can't say for sure, so I'm not. But anyway, uh, one thing about this game is a little different. Losing the challenges is not necessarily something that makes you stand out because this game reminds me of another game called The Mole. And in The Mole, the player that is the mole or the traitor is trying to stop the team from accumulating money to put in the pot. Well, that is not necessarily the case here because the mole, as some might call it, will take money from the pot. So it is, and they are incentivized to try to win these competitions because if they don't win, unlike the mole, if they don't win, they don't win any money. So it was really difficult for me to try to wrap my mind around that. Like even the traders want to win the competitions, which I guess in essence makes it more difficult to find out who the trader is because no one's going to be going in the opposite direction or sabotaging the missions because that's what the mole did. But in this case, no, that is not necessarily what happens. But the weirdest thing that happens in this episode is while the competition is going on, Michael just starts pitching and trying to get Geraldine out. He's literally going up to players saying, "Hey, if you write down Geraldine's name tonight, I'll also write her name down." Or who are you voting for? I'm voting for Geraldine. So Michael does that. And I really want to know what people think about that. If you were able to see episode 2, were you on board with the fact that Michael was openly campaigning against Geraldine in the middle of competitions? That was kind of interesting. And then once we find out that there's two teams who don't finish, you kind of get this, this whole banter between Michael and everybody trying to figure out what's going on. They're talking amongst each other. Did you hear what Michael said? Did you see what Geraldine said? So it becomes very apparent that somebody within those two individuals will be going home. And eventually they go to their round table and they have conversations and they start to cross examine and compare notes. And very surprisingly, Cody is one of the first players to come out and say, "Hey, we got to get the conversation started. I don't mind starting it." I thought that was a bad move on Cody's part, being the first one to speak out at the round table. Again, I think this type of game lends itself to a player who says the least. And the fact that Cody was the first one to speak, I just thought that was maybe a bad move in my personal opinion. But anyway, he starts the conversation, and then Christian jumps in. And just a word about Christian. If you don't know, Christian is one of the traders. And I don't know. Christian is a very, very interesting player. He's always at the top of discussion. Anytime he's talking with someone about game, he has to spearhead the conversation. He has to be the person who gets the first word and the last word. And this has caused his name to come up several times. And I think that he might do better if he didn't speak so much. And I think Cody was the one who said, "I don't really want to be on the team with him. I don't want to be a fellow trader with Christian because he literally never stops talking." And this game is all about staying in the shadows. But Christian chimes in, kind of like Cody does, and he kind of points the finger at both Michael and Geraldine, saying they're both playing very suspicious games. And really, what Christian is trying to do is muddy the waters. He's trying to get the target off of him and put it on these other two players. And some might call that deflecting. Right? He's trying to deflect the target off of him to someone else. But in doing so, I think he is raising some antennas. He's making people realize why he's playing really, really hard. Whereas Cody, he said what he had to say. He started the conversation, but you don't really see him jump in as much as Christian does. And of course, Sari, all right, the graceful, is 100% in the background, not saying a word, not doing anything, not making any crazy gestures, just laying low. And that's the way you win this game. That's how you play this game. But anyway, it really falls down to two players, Geraldine and Michael. And it really comes down to all the players picking a side. And this was a very interesting dynamic in this episode because every player has to say, okay, Geraldine said this about Michael. Michael, once he heard that Geraldine said that, he got really, really upset and called Geraldine a liar, saying that him and what's his name? Him and Reza, he might have had words about Reza maybe one time, but never said that Reza was a traitor or something to that effect. So it made Geraldine also look bad, right? And just think, none of this happens if Geraldine doesn't open her mouth. There was no reason for her to say Michael's name, no reason for her to bring up the fact that Michael and Reza had this kind of conflict. And this is the problem. Everyone would have probably figured that out all by themselves had Geraldine not said anything, because in a game like this, everyone's looking for a reason, and especially this early. Okay. And I think this is the reason why when we get to about the middle to the end of this game, Cody is done. There's no reason once you have got the trader wrong maybe 3 times, unless you're absolutely ridiculously not aware of what's going on in your surroundings and you've never seen a game show in your life. Unless that happens, you're going to say, "Hey, let's just try Cody out." Everybody, we've gotten it wrong 2 or 3 times. Let's try Cody out. Let's try Sari out. I think Christian he would be under the radar because he's not a famous face. But again, he is always spearheading conversation. So pretty soon he'll go up. But I also can sense that in this game, they respect people like Cody and Cerise. So maybe they have that going for them. When I say respect, I mean they're the OGs. If we're gonna take a shot at a player like a Cody, like a two-time finalist in Big Brother, if we're gonna take a shot at a Cerise who's always in the finals of Survivor, we got to make sure everything is aligned. So I think they're getting that OG respect, and I think that's why Christian might be the first of the three to be detected if any of them are detected. But anyway, we get to the vote, and it's really close. Geraldine is getting a lot of early votes, but then, as you probably know, Michael starts to get more votes towards the end. But ultimately, Michael stays and Geraldine leaves. Now, here's the question: Did Michael ruin his game by going back and forth with Geraldine? Because what Michael did was just to deflect the target off of him, he really put a lot of onus on Geraldine because something happened in this episode that I wasn't quite sure would happen. And that is once the player who everyone puts their votes on, once they were, once it's revealed that that player has the most votes, they stand up and exit. But before they leave, they have to specify whether they were one of the traitors. And I didn't know that would happen. Okay. So as Geraldine is about to leave, she turns around and tells everybody, hey, I was a faithful. I was not a traitor. And then that immediately makes Michael look like he was the traitor and he was painting the target on Geraldine to throw off the scent of him being the traitor. So while Michael is safe, in a weird way, it's almost like he's just painted a bigger target on himself. Because if I'm in the game, I'm saying, why did Michael really campaign so hard about Geraldine? And then you have to ask yourself, was Geraldine trying to give us a warning? Geraldine is the first player to say that Michael had it out for Reza, and then Reza goes home. And now Michael has it out for Geraldine, and Geraldine goes home. So it makes it appear that Michael is the biggest mastermind in the game, and I'm not sure it's going to fare well for him. I'm expecting him to go home within the next two episodes. What do you think about that? Now, here's the craziest part about this episode, or I should say, about this entire show that I like. When the faithful vote out the wrong person, not only do they lose one player, the faithful, they are gearing up to lose a second player. That's terrifying. So that means every time you're wrong, you lose two players, not just one. You lose two players. So they vote Geraldine out, right? Unbeknownst to them, they didn't know she was a faithful. So they vote out their own player, but now they have to go to sleep in which the three traitors can convene and talk, and they'll get a chance to pick off another player off the faithful side. So once episode 3 starts, and I haven't seen it, but once it starts, it's my belief that Brandy is going to go home. And here's why. Brandy is one of the smarter players. You wouldn't be able to tell by, the way she carries herself, how she talks. She's kind of like, really rowdy, but she's one of the smarter players who can sniff out fakeness, right? So she's made a big mistake. Again, the more you talk, the more you put yourself in danger of losing or leaving the game. So there were several times within the game itself, episode 2, where Brandy confided in Cody, saying that she thought Sari was the traitor, that she thought that Christian was the traitor. And in doing so, she alerted Cody to the fact that she's able to pick off or recognize these people as being fake or traitors. And Cody said it himself. He said, well, she was able to accurately pick 2 out of 3 of us. Therefore, she's pretty dangerous. So now the one player who could actually sniff out the traitors is more than likely going to go home following episode 2. So I'm expecting to see, when I watch episode 3, Brandy going home, namely because she is able to sniff out the players. Now, if she was able to do that silently, she'll be one of the biggest threats in the game. But because she has to talk, she has to have TV time, she's going to be more than likely the next casualty. Now, I'll tell you someone who's doing this really well. That's Rachel. Rachel is the biggest threat in the game. If you've ever seen Rachel in action on Big Brother, you know exactly what I mean. She's terrifying. She's a big threat, but she's not saying much, especially in the way of naming people and picking people out. She's just sitting. And I don't know how Rachel is doing this. Rachel has, or I should say, she is showing me a different side of her. Rachel has always been the loudest player in the game, but now you're starting to see that she's matured a little bit. At least I'm starting to see that. So she's doing it correctly. She's staying to herself, keeping a low profile. But I was just wondering, how long is it going to take before someone picks her out? Because she is such a threat. And if you don't know that, I don't know how you don't know that. But I believe that Brandy goes home next. Do I think that they find a traitor within episode 3? No, because I think Michael will undoubtedly be the biggest threat. Christian did say this. He says that Michael is a good player for his game because he's such a huge threat. And basically, I think Christian intends to use Michael as a shield. But I would argue right now, without having any clue of what's happening for episode 3, I didn't even watch a preview. I think without question, Michael's going home next. Okay. And I think, obviously Brandy is going home next as well. So I think those two players will go one after the other. And then from there, I have no clue what's going to go on. All right. But anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about for this episode. Let me know if you like this particular concept, reacting to the episodes. And I do hope I did it justice for someone who can't see it. But I'll be back with another one. Please throw me a like if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.